How would you like a free case of craft beer? Well, as a listener to our show, we'd like to thank you for listening, and with the help of our friends at beer52.com, we can do just that. Just go to beer52.com/vision. That's beer, the number 52.com/vision to claim a free case. Beer 52 is the world's most popular monthly craft beer discovery club. They search out incredible and exclusive small batch craft beers from the world's greatest breweries and bring them back for their members. There is a whole world of craft beer out there. You don't have to drink the same thing over and over again. You don't have to order beer not knowing what you like. Just get on board with discovering great craft beer with beer52.com. Every month focuses on a new country or theme, and if you sign up now, you'll get the chance to try a case of the best of British craft beers as part of their Summer Bangers selection, all for free. Featuring the country's best craft brewers such as Northern Monk, Ilkley, Red Willow, and Thornbridge, all very delicious. You'll be able to read all about the beers and learn more about how they are made in a 100-page ferment magazine included in the box. As a listener to our show, you can try your first case for free. Just pay £2.95 postage. That's it. 8 incredible craft beers delivered to you, ferment magazine, and a snack. There's no minimum commitment. You can just take the free case, try the beers, see what you think. If it's not for you, you can pause, cancel anytime. Beer 52 has a 5-star rating on Trustpilot, so it's easy to see that their members love the service. Do it now. Try some craft beer. Just visit beer52.com. That's www.beer52.com/vision and claim your free case today. Try it. Beer52.com. It is the way to learn more about great beers around the world. Offer valid in the UK only.
Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer! Zola! And a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it! And here's Limpar, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal in front.
Torreira, whoa, Torreira, whoa. He came from Uruguay to play for Unai Emery. Torreira, whoa, Torreira, whoa. He may not be pretty, but he's better than Mustafi. Torreira, whoa, Torreira, whoa. He's only 5 feet tall. He loves to win the ball. Torreira, whoa, Torreira, whoa. He stops counterattacks when Xhaka's dribbled past. No, this is the ArsenalVision post-match podcast. My name is Elliot Smith, and you can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. I'm sorry, that went on way too long. I could do a million of those, but instead of doing a million of those, I want to give you a million stats, a million facts, a million details to break down what was the blockbuster news story of today. That's right. We are recording this on Tuesday, July 10th, 2018, and clearly the blockbuster story of the day, on a day when, yes, Riyad Mahrez signed for Manchester City, and yes, France advanced to the World Cup final, and yes, Cristiano Ronaldo signed for Juventus. None of it rivaled the news that Lucas Torreira had signed for Arsenal. A bombshell. No one saw it coming. Came out of the blue. And here to discuss it with me is Scott. You can find him on Twitter at O_that_crab. Hello, Scott.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm doing great. As you can tell, I am fired up. I have a coffee next to me. It is half empty. You might think that it would be entirely empty the way I've started this podcast, but this is it. This is what we live for. A real quality, top-flight, age-appropriate signing. Someone who does not come already on his Social Security benefits or whatever benefits they call them over there in that part of the world. He certainly does not increase the handsome factor of Arsenal, but he does increase the bastard factor just a little bit, and that is important. I want to do this first. Since we haven't spoken to you all summer, I kind of want to get your feel, just really quickly summarize for me how you feel about the other business we've done to this point overall.
I guess I would say if there was one word to sum it up, I'd say competent. I mean, they've gone out and identified some players that are, some areas of need that needed to get some new players in, and they've went and done it. Before Torreira came in, none of the guys were super exciting. I'm kind of intrigued by some of the young players, but, young players are always, fun, and you can project your hopes and dreams onto them. Everyone else has been, hey, that's not a bad signing. It's pretty good. And that's exactly kind of what we needed in some of those spots. But Torreira, he's the one that really, is exciting. I don't know if I'm ready to sing quite like you. But
I wouldn't recommend it. There is apparently a youngster that we're signing too, whose name escapes me. It starts with a G, I believe, a French League 2 player. So we potentially, there are pictures floating around of him signing a contract. So presumably, we've actually made 2 signings today. Do you know anything about the kid that you might want to mention before we dive into Torreira?
Oh, absolutely nothing.
Fantastic. That's what we like.
So that means he's going to be one of the best players ever.
And it
right?
is.
That's how it works.
Well, I'm sure the comps will prove that. Look, this is what is interesting, though. I think if you go back 10 years and we had signed a 22-year-old Uruguayan from Sampdoria to play in midfield and really be the midfield anchor we've been crying out for, I think a lot of people would be very worried. There'd be maybe some collective shrugs. There'd be this sense of underwhelming reaction to it. But what's changed so much with social media and YouTube compilations and the exposure to the game, and I realize a pretty decent World Cup that he had, but even before the World Cup, there was a lot of excitement for this player arriving, and I think it's great. So obviously we know 22, he's at that age that we have maybe missed out on, someone who arrives ready to play in the first team, having had first team experience at a decent sized club, but could now take the leap into stardom where he becomes either the linchpin for, dare I say it, a title-winning Arsenal team, or, at minimum, maybe becomes the key piece that we sell to revitalize the team when he becomes that £80 million signing, when he elevates his game to the Naby Keita sort of level that we saw Liverpool go out for from Red Bull Leipzig. But in terms of the type of player we're getting, my eyes tell me that we are getting sort of a tigerish, defensively oriented, solid midfielder, if not remarkable technically, someone who can use the ball efficiently and intelligently. Do you want to sort of break down for us maybe some of the statistics of his gameplay at Sampdoria and what type of player we're getting? And maybe if there are any myths about him, you could dispel some of those as well.
Sure, yeah. So one of the things that really jumps out when you look at him is that, well, one, he's an incredibly small player. I think he's 168 centimeters or something like that. And, I'm not very great with the centimeters, but that's pretty short from what I know. But that being said, he doesn't seem to get bullied at all in the ball. I know you watching him in the World Cup because I'll be honest, I don't watch a ton of Serie A. That's probably the third-rate competition on beIN Sports here for actually showing games, and especially Sampdoria is not high on the list. So a lot of my previous scouting before the World Cup had come from YouTube compilations, like I'm sure many people's had. But his defensive output is very impressive. I have him, 2.9 tackles, successful tackles per game, just dribbled past 1.3 times, only fouls 1.3 times per game. So really quite a bit of action in there. And the other thing that I was actually really impressed with his Uruguay performances were his ability to always seem to be in the right position, to actually kind of stop things before he actually had to make an intervention. A lot of times, that's the biggest thing where the defensive stats really let you down, is if you don't make an action, it's not recorded and It doesn't seem like you did anything. But, if you watch the game with him in it, he's always in the right spot. He doesn't seem to be getting out of position, and he always seems to give good structure to the midfield defensively when the team is out of possession. And also when the team is in possession, he doesn't seem to unbalance the team. So it's very impressive from him that I like that, especially, coming off, he's 22 and he's putting out this kind of defensive output. It's all the more impressive to me.
And I think it speaks volumes to his quality that at 22, Uruguay started the tournament with him on the bench and quickly became aware that they needed him in the side for balance in the midfield. I think, to your point, defensive statistics are tough, especially for midfielders, because if you constantly deny the passing lanes and deny those final third entry passes, you don't get a statistic for that. There's no way to measure that. But it is a critically important skill set for the deepest midfielder, right? To deny passing lanes, especially in central spaces and half spaces, to the forwards. So it's something he seems to do well. Now, you did mention a few statistics, though, in terms of tackle, dribbled pass, things like that. Where would that put him, putting those stats in context, to understand that they're not everything, where would that put him sort of vis-a-vis the other midfielders we have at the club?
So one of the things that I asked for some questions on Twitter when we announced that we were going to do this podcast, and one of the people asked if I could compare him to Coughlin's great season with Arsenal, where he was basically tasked with being, the bulldog in the midfield. So if you look at him, so this is his age 26 season, I believe. So he's 4 years older than what Torreira was last season. So Coquelin had 3.7 total tackles compared to 2.9 for Torreira. He was dribbled past 1.7 times compared to 1.3 for Torreira. So he attempted a few more tackles, was successful a bit more, but also unsuccessful a bit more. So the actual tackle rate is about the same. Interceptions 2.6 for Coquelin, 2 for Torreira. Part of that could be the league differences. Serie A is a lot slower league where they don't quite do as many passes. And, if there's less passes, there's going to be less interception opportunities. You also look at blocked passes. That's about the same at 1 a game each. So to me, you look at Coquelin, who that was his big calling card was, all right, I'm going to be the defensive block in the midfield and I'm going to stop everything. And Torreira, 4 or 5 years younger, pretty much matches everything that he does there. And I think that he also adds a lot more on the offensive side. He carried a big load for Sampdoria compared to what Coquelin was forced to do with Arsenal.
Yeah, because I think that's the one thing, you may be aware that I never warmed to Francis Coquelin, and part of my argument was that he was basically a zero in possession, and so you needed a player like Santi Cazorla who could play almost like two players in midfield. And when we didn't have him, we really, the midfield became dysfunctional with Coquelin in it. So as far as on the ball, in possession, is that an area where Torreira distinguishes himself in a way that perhaps Francis Coquelin did not?
Yeah, and I think so. He doesn't necessarily do as many of the big flashy passes as you'd see some from some of the other midfielders, but I don't think that's going to be the role that he's going to be tasked with playing in Arsenal. When we have so many other midfielders that is really their forte. I mean, he's going to hopefully slot next to Xhaka, and that's something that you want him doing. You want him to be able to ping those passes and try to break lines or advance the ball into the final third. And then once you get into the final third, you're really looking for Ozil or Mkhitaryan to be able to make that final pass. So I don't think that you're necessarily looking for him to make that final pass. I think you want him to be able to hold on to the ball, but also still be comfortable in possession to where, if somebody goes out with a game plan of, all right, we're not going to let Xhaka beat us, Torreira is still capable of making those passes. And I think you look at his stats and he's more than capable of doing that. So I looking at the progressive passing last year, I had him at an overall value of 0.697. So that's in the upper third of the spectrum here. So I have
what would
him,
like a Xhaka rate in something like that?
Let's see, I can pull that up here.
Let me just throw things at you to test the speed of your database.
Yeah, exactly.
Why not? Well, and then the other thing is that, and I'm taking this purely from watching him in the World Cup and from comps I've seen, he does seem to be comfortable with the ball at his feet. He has the ability to dribble out of pressure and sort of wriggle out of tight spaces similar to what a Cazorla did, which is a big issue for Xhaka because when he feels that pressure get close to him, he's usually unable to get out of those tight spots. So, is that something else that you find to be true? Did he complete a decent amount of dribbles at Sampdoria?
Dribbling wise, he was, one dribble a game kind of player. He actually isn't the best dribbler in the completion percentage wise because, he attempts over 2 dribbles a game. So he's about a 50% dribbler. So it's not necessarily something that you're going to.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's not bad. He's also fouled quite a bit. To me, that kind of looks like hard
to get the ball off him. Yep.
Exactly. So, he's going to try to take on a player probably about 4 or 5 times a game. He'll get past him once, get fouled twice, and maybe lose the ball once. The other thing is, but he also is very solid in his touch. He only has 1 bad touch a game on average, which is a very solid number for a midfielder. You don't want really, sometimes, you get, so Coquelin was at 1.7 in his best season. Which, that's basically an extra bad touch a game or every other game. So that's really not very good.
Well,
so
and that's also, you have to put that in the context of the percentage of touches, right? How many touches a Torreira averages in a game and Coquelin averages in a game. I would imagine that Torreira was more involved in the build-up for Sampdoria, but then again, Arsenal possessed the ball more. So I guess it could cut either way. I know that we didn't really use Coquelin in build-up, but we did have a lot more possession, arguably.
Exactly, and that's something that I'm actually in the process of working on, getting some more data on. I know I've actually started working on this for the World Cup, where I'm looking at total offensive actions taken. So you look at total passes, touches, dribbles, times that you're fouled, and then trying to get an idea of, all right, so how many times did you lose possession per offensive action? Because a lot of these players are high volume players. So you look at these on a per 90 basis, and it might look bad, but then you kind of need to adjust it for, how much are they on the ball? Are they on the ball a lot? And then it's, then their percentage of losing the ball isn't nearly as bad. Because I think that was part of the, not to really go back and beat a dead horse, but I think that was a lot of the Alexis problem. He was such a major focal point of the attack, and that really juiced his numbers where, he lost the ball, but he also had a high number of touches. So it's almost like a usage stat that you would see like in basketball. So that's something that I'm slowly trying to work on as I go through the database this summer, although I've been a little bit distracted with World Cup, which is, not a bad thing.
No, I think for most of us, it's weird to get clawed back into the club mindset where the World Cup is sort of reaching its crescendo here. And as far as we said in terms of his progressive play compared to someone like a Xhaka who's been tasked with playing at the base of midfield, I mean, do we see comparable progressive play?
Yeah, so Xhaka was almost 10, which he actually rates very highly in this.
You would kind of expect that, because otherwise, what the hell is he there for?
Exactly, but if you look at some of the players around Torreira, Leroy Sané is actually just below him at 6.8. There's some of the other players. Let's see, Shaqiri for Stoke was 6.59.
So players that we think of as being more attack oriented.
Exactly. So he's definitely in that upper portion. Definitely a very good player. But again, if we're looking at per passes, he's at 0.15 in the PP passing value added per 50 passes, 0.15, which is maybe about the 70th percentile. So not an elite number, but still a good number, especially when you're looking at the age at 22. To me, that shows that he's very good for his age.
Yeah.
When you're comparing him to players in their prime, and he is still in that development area. The other thing that I thought that actually was very positive, and something that I've really looked at as one of Arsenal's problems, is the connecting the midfield to the final third. That seems to be an issue that Arsenal had last year, especially when Ozil wasn't necessarily in the game, or when Xhaka was having his problems early in the season. So one of the things I look at for that is successful final third entry passes. And Torreira actually was 192 of 287, so almost 70% in his final third entry percentage. And he actually rates very highly in volume for this stat. So that's a very positive stat for me to be able to see. I have him, let's see, count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, ninth most in all.
You're running out of fingers there. You got lucky.
Yes, I was. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, yeah, he's definitely up there. Just behind guys like Fernandinho, Gabby. So from Atletico Madrid, so very good player, at least in this regard. And I think that's something that Arsenal will definitely be a very positive side, because, you can't be dependent on one player to move the ball forward for you all of the time. And that's something that it seems to do very well at getting at a high percentage.
Well, I think this bears out another important point here, too, which is, you look at like a Francis Coquelin, and not to just keep beating on Francis Coquelin, but why not? It is the case that in a lot of games in the Premier League, 75% of the games, we're the overwhelming favorite. We're going to have overwhelmingly dominant possession, and we're going to be parked in the attacking third. And you want your midfielders to be able to participate in that build-up, to deliver the ball into the final third accurately and repeatedly. You want them to be able to carry the ball forward. And when you use Francis Coquelin against a bottom third of the table team at home at the Emirates, you're really putting a lot of pressure on the other players you have in the side to help create attacks and move the ball and pull defenders out of position. And it sounds like Torreira has at least some of the markers that you would look for that suggest that he can be a part of that process. That, certainly we're going to talk a lot about and focus a lot on his defensive awareness, his defensive statistics, his ball recoveries, interceptions, tackles, things like that. But those are features of his game that will certainly be very, very important when we play away, where we struggled last season, when we play against the big clubs, which we've obviously struggled with over the past few years. But I think the home games against smaller clubs, the fact that he can contribute in the attack is relevant. I mean, is that something that you would agree with?
Oh, definitely. So one of the things that's been frustrating for me with Arsenal squad building is that a lot of the players that have been targeted and have signed lately seem to have at least one major flaw. Sure, they have, quite a few elite skills where they're, probably world class at, but they all have something that, the opposing team can key on and try to exploit.
Shaq is the poster child for that. Yeah.
Great passer. If you give him space, he can shoot from distance. I wish he would stop doing it quite as much.
Right.
But he has great skills. Running, defending, making smart decisions, defending, not always one of them. But when I look at Torreira, I see someone who may not have that one necessarily super elite skill, but he's very well-rounded. And I think that as he gets older, he might be able to develop some of these defensive skills, if that's what the way that Arsenal need him to be, grow into a Conte's type player. Because to me, that would be the absolute dream. If he was able to carry another midfielder as that, basically be two defensive midfielders in one, like Conte. But I think he also has the ability, if it's something that, we want to focus on, to actually become a very, very good passer. So to me right now, he doesn't necessarily have a weakness that opposing coaches can go out and game plan and say, we're going to force him to do this, and it's going to cause Arsenal's midfield to unravel.
Yeah.
So to me, that is one of the more important parts, is that he's going to bring balance to whoever he's playing next to. If he's playing next to a guy that's more defensive, he can take on more of an offensive role. If he's carrying next to somebody who's a little bit more offensive, he can take a little bit of a back seat and, make sure that he's playing the quarterback and, just distributing him the ball and not having to take that responsibility on himself and focus more on the defensive duties.
I don't want to spoil this for you. He's not going to be playing next to someone who's defensively oriented, because there's no one else at the club that's like that. So he'll have to do the other thing you mentioned. But, I think there's another point here, Scott, which is that, he's going to be playing probably in front of a central defensive pairing of Mustafi and Socrates, which I'll admit doesn't inspire me with the greatest degree of confidence. On some days, it may be Holding in Chambers, or Chambers and Socrates, or Holding in Mustafi, or some combination of those guys, or maybe Mavropanos. So either inexperienced players that still haven't proven themselves, or experienced players that have question marks around them. If it was Granit Xhaka standing in there protecting those central defensive pairings, I would be pretty terrified, considering how many goals we leaked last season with arguably better defensive pairing with Koscielny in there. So getting this player who can deny entry passes into the forward, who can block the lanes, who does a great job shielding the center of the defense right at the D, you know what I mean? So the top of the D, the top of the 18-yard box. I think that is so crucial, given that we have some concerns about our central defensive pairing. So would you say that his arrival alleviates for you some of the fear of what we can put out there in terms of central defenders?
Yeah, I'm hoping that this year that would... Well, I'm hoping actually even just the change in tactics, I guess, would eliminate some of this. Even with, hadn't Torreira brought in, some of this was a structural issue where there was too many times where it would be 2-on-2, 3-on-3, where people running at our defender. So I'm hoping there's a little bit less of that this year. And I think Torreira can actually go into a system that's actually been strengthened structurally. And actually stop some of these counterattacks a little bit earlier, or being able to play them a little bit better than what Xhaka would be able to do, because he's actually mobile. And, I don't want to say like I'm hating Xhaka, because I really do like Xhaka, but that is always something that scared the crap out of me, seeing him trying to run back with players, or, be one of those guys that's trying to follow a runner in his 18-yard box. Torreira's not big, but you can see that in the World Cup, there's the picture going around of him really just bossing Ronaldo
off the ball.
Exactly,
like shoulder charging him off. Yep.
You can just see that he's small, but he is not a guy that is going to get out muscled necessarily, because he's low to the ground, and he uses that to his advantage to really get the leverage on the bigger players. So to me, having that ability to follow runners, to be able to defend and really keep things out of the middle of the field where things are so dangerous against Arsenal. Really just is, I'm optimistic.
So let's do this. Let's play a little fantasy manager here, a little football manager. And I mean, with him in the side, it gives us a lot of opportunity to experiment with lineups, experiment with formations. I've seen a lot of chatter on social media about how we now look really set up to play with a diamond in midfield. I'm not aware of Emery ever doing that or not doing that. I mean, to you, is that the most natural use of the players? What are some formations you think could be an interesting way to deploy this group of central midfielders and the team generally?
Yeah, I mean, the diamond, if you actually kind of look at the players, it's really hard to imagine how things fit in because there really isn't any real natural wide forwards. There's a lot of tens that can play out on the wing. I guess Ozil and Mkhitaryan can both, I guess, theoretically be played on the wings, but that's really not where they're best. They're really best, I guess, more in the half space with free rolls. So it's a very hard thing for what Emery's going to have to do to put in.
How would you line them up? I'm not letting you squirm out of this. Line up our team.
Okay. I almost kind of like the old RB Leipzig 4-2-2-2-2. Kind of a thing. I think that was always a fun formation that they threw out there.
So what would it be for you? Torreira, Xhaka.
Yeah, Torreira, Xhaka, then maybe Ozil, Ramsey, then Aubameyang, Lacazette, and then if you're needing something, you can bring Mkhitaryan on for depth or rotation. That's a pretty flexible formation that you can give that midfield some pretty good freedom to be able to kind of interchange and move around. I guess the other option, you go that 4-2-3-1 with, or the 4-4. Yeah, it's tough because it's like, do you try to squeeze both Lacazette and Aubameyang in at the same time? Like, do you need to go two strikers?
I mean, in a 4-diamond-2, you can do that, right? I mean, you could put Torreira at the base of midfield, Xhaka and Ramsey at the sides of the diamond, Ozil at the point, and Aubameyang and Lacazette, or Mkhitaryan and Aubameyang, or Mkhitaryan and Lacazette, and you can kind of rotate the three for those two positions, or even arguably play Mkhitaryan at the point of the diamond if you had to. It puts a lot of pressure on your fullbacks to provide the width. So,
which I think is almost anything Arsenal do.
You're going to have to because we don't have wingers.
It's going to have to because even if you play the 4-2-3-1, those guys are nominally wide, but they're going to spend a lot of time cutting in at a minimum into that half space. They're not going to be traditional wingers out on the chalk.
I guess the question is, why not just the 4-3-3? I mean, didn't Emery prefer that sort of at PSG, and you have Torreira sort of at the base of a flying V with Xhaka and Ramsey, and then you have Ozil shunted out to one of the wide of the three, Mkhitaryan the other, and Aubameyang up front, and Lacazette just becomes the alternate center forward?
Exactly, and I think that a lot of times that's probably going to be the way it looks, no matter whatever is printed on the game sheet. I think you're going to see Ozil probably still given that freedom to kind of go wherever he wants.
Yeah.
And interchange with the other forwards to find that space. Because that's just, if you're going to play Ozil, you almost have to give him that freedom to be able to do that, to be able to maximize everything he is. And then you try to use the rest of your team to compensate. And I think if you're going to do that, you're going to want a guy like Torreira in there that's going to be able to at least give you a solid midfield and not because that was always the thing when you had just the Ramsey-Xhaka double pairing. I love Ramsey. He's another player that I love, but that's one of the weaknesses that all Arsenal players have. His is that he loves to bomb forward. He's so good at it, but a lot of times it just kills the shape of the team. And when it comes off, it's awesome. But when Arsenal lose the ball and he is standing in the 18-yard box, it's a wide open midfield, and you cannot expect Xhaka to carry that all by himself. So I think if you do kind of lose a nominal forward to be able to go with three midfielders, but you still have Ramsey there, and with another guy behind him, it gives him a little bit more of that freedom to do it without hurting the team. So as we talk through it, I almost think that you have to go with three forwards, three midfielders, how they actually line up isn't really all that important. And, I think they can kind of figure it out in the game. And you're going to look for width from your fullbacks to be able to balance things out. But hopefully it's not both fullbacks bombing forward at the same time, really stranding the center backs.
Obviously, you mentioned Ramsey and how he's been sort of an uncomfortable fit in the midfield. And he is not re-signed yet. There's been no announcement. We're running out of time. People forget, but the season starts and the window closes. Obviously, that's the new rule now. The transfer window shuts when the season starts. So are you feeling pretty optimistic, given that he hasn't been moved on yet, that he will be re-signed?
So if I was to put a number on it, I'd say that I'm probably about 70% right now that he makes it through the season. There really hasn't been many rumors.
You think makes it through the season without re-signing, that he plays in?
No. That he does sign, and that Arsenal keep him through the summer. Because there really hasn't been any rumors out there of him being linked to other teams. I know there's been talks of a new contract going on. I don't want to. I try not to follow too many of the in the knows in there, but sometimes they get retweeted out there, and it's tough to try to actually get some realistic news on where things are actually at.
Yeah, it's tough because I think if he's not re-signing, we really do have to sell him and cash in. But you're at a point in the season now, or in the summer, I should say, where if that were to happen, you're pressed for time to bring in a replacement. You could make the argument that we don't need a replacement, that Torreira is actually kind of a Ramsey replacement, and that what we will do instead is play a midfield three that is some combination of Xhaka, Torreira, and Ozil, and Mkhitaryan will be in a front three with Lacazette and Aubameyang, and that's how you get everybody into the squad, and Ramsey misses out and he's sold, and we put that money down the road towards a wide forward, maybe in January or something like that. I obviously hope that's not the case. I think there is a little bit too much football manager going on out there where people are trying to construct 11s that get Aubameyang, Lacazette, Mkhitaryan, Ramsey, Ozil all in the side. I don't think you have to do that. We have enough games to play that everybody will get game time. And if that means Lacazette is not a starting player for us, or Mkhitaryan is not a starting player for us, or he has to fight for that place, I don't think it's the end of the world. It also means when we go up north and Mesut Ozil has the sniffles, we still have attacking options. So I think that can work. Maybe, for all the hand-wringing about how we're going to put all this great attacking talent onto the pitch, the real hand-wringing should probably be reserved for what we're going to do at the back. So a couple questions for you. First of all, we brought in Leno. Do you I feel like goalkeeping statistics are still in the dark ages and that they really don't tell us much about the keepers. But have you done any analysis on Leno as a keeper and whether you think he was a good addition?
I haven't had a chance to because, like you said, it's really pretty rudimentary. I've seen some stuff out there from people that I do, really enjoy their work, showing that based on the XG that, he's faced, he's underperformed. One of the things that I'm really interested in, I have a kind of a shots or a post shot model that looks at, is the shot on target where it is. It doesn't take into account, the goalkeeping positioning, because that's not necessarily available. I know StatsBomb just came out with that, and I'm super jealous that they have that information and I don't. But it's still so hard.
Why are we talking to you? Get me those guys. No, I'm just kidding. Keep going.
Yeah. Where you really do, are able to kind of get an idea of, all right, well, how really hard was this shot to save? Because there are some from a good spot, but it's right at the keeper. Should that necessarily be given a high probability of being a goal?
It depends if it's Wilshere in there or Karius in there. You never know. It might go right through the wickets. Yeah.
Yeah.
He has.
It's.
Sorry, go ahead.
I've seen some stats saying that he underperforms his XG based on what he's faced. There's also I've seen scouting reports saying that he can make the really good saves out there, but sometimes he loses the concentration and he'll have an error or two in him.
So that scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, but I don't know. To me, there was a lot of that with Czech last season too, where he had some of those just clinkers where he'd make an error.
Who do you think will start the season as our number one? Not number one shirt, but the goalkeeper, obviously.
I think Czech stays as the Premier League keeper. I think Leno is probably starts the season as the Europa League Cup keeper.
Where do you come down on the idea of him getting the 19 and Torreira getting the 11? don't care, or think it's a crime against humanity?
I'm not normally a big guy on shirt numbers. I think it's, one of the lower priority things. I think Arsenal's shirt situation right now is,
a damn disgrace.
Top banter. Yeah.
Okay. So then, assuming it is Cech who starts in goal, and I know there are a lot of people that say that's the old way of thinking, that's the Arsene Wenger way of thinking, that Leno was, that amount of money that we put down, that's what you spend to get a first-choice keeper, and that Cech will be the reliable, safe pair of hands who plays Europa League and Cup. I mean, I don't know why I think Cech will start the Premier League. I just do. I don't know why. I cannot explain it. But we'll see. But as far as how you'd set up the defense, I guess there are a few questions. I mean, first of all, do you take it as gospel, as just a matter of fact that Nacho will be the left back, or do you think that Kolasinac will get a chance to compete for that job?
It's really hard to say because, Nacho was on international duty with Spain. Luckily, he got to come home a bit early with, Spain's disaster class penalties. So I think he's probably the first choice on the depth chart. But, new manager, everybody's going to have to fight for their spot. So I guess it really probably will depend. It might be, one of those cliche training camp battles that you would expect to see to kind of see who can impress the coach the most. Because I don't think, given his age, if he has the ability to be a modern fullback, which is probably the hardest position on the pitch, with just the amount of athleticism that is demanded from you. So I think that is definitely something that is definitely still up for grabs. And I wouldn't be surprised if Kolasinac was able to take the starting job there.
It's interesting, right? Because players that were sort of on the garbage pile, that were sort of not in contention for a squad place, or certainly not used by Arsene Wenger, really have to feel revitalized now and have a chance to win a place. Another player who sort of out of nowhere looks like he could be a part of the squad at least is Lucas Perez. I mean, do you expect him to be with Arsenal when the season starts?
All signs really do point to yes, that he will be here. And I think there's going to be enough game time to go around to really give him a chance to be that, he might be, the Europa League kind of guy, because that's what Giroud did at the beginning of last season. He, started all of our Europa League matches, and I think that Perez will probably be given a chance there. Is
that the end for that guy then?
No, I mean, possibly, but I think because he's another guy he had a 1 year left on his deal as well.
Well, the problem you have here, Scott, I mean, if Lucas Perez is in the team and Welbeck is in the team and Lacazette, let's say there is no starting place for him. I mean, you could be in a situation where two of the three aren't even on the bench on match days. Certainly one of them wouldn't be. You're not going to have Lacazette, Welbeck, and Perez on the bench, and arguably you're only going to have one of them, and it's going to be Lacazette. So, I mean, you realistically can't see both staying, can you?
I think that Danny Welbeck's days are probably numbered. I think I'm pulling up Transfer Market right now to see if we can look at when his contract is up, because I want to say that he's another one of those guys that is right at the time where, it's make a decision time on, extend or sell.
I think it's his final season, isn't it, of the deal?
Pulling it up right now.
The suspense is killing me. If I was more professional, I'd put some tense music under this moment of the podcast. I am certainly not going to do that. So in the meantime, just enjoy the sweet sound of mouse clicks as Scott goes on the interwebs. Transfer
All right.
Marked. This info brought to you by Transfermarkt. Yes?
Here it is. The result. Contract expires 2019.
Yeah, so it's his final year. So, I mean, it's sell or lose him on a free. Now, I mean, you might say, what's his transfer value anyway? $8 million, $6 million? I mean,
currently,
it's still money.
15 on Transfer Market, but that one
no one's
is
paying $15 million for him.
Huge grain of salt. Yeah, I would say
maybe an English club.
Maybe 8 to 10. Might be World Cup winner Danny Welbeck here in a minute.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, look, do I think you could get $10 million from a lower half of the table English club for him? Maybe, but does it say what he's on in terms of wages? Because I think
that it doesn't. Yeah,
that's always going to be the issue. Because if he's on $80,000 a week or even $100,000 a week or something like that, and I'll admit to not having any idea what it is. that's where you wind up struggling. But I mean, you look at what's happening around the league and the power and the attraction and the money in the Premier League. Jean-Michel Seri today announced at Fulham, of all places.
Yeah, that was a surprising one for me.
Yeah.
I thought he was destined towards a higher table club.
Chelsea was linked with him. So how about, real quick, a word for Jack Wilshere? I mean, he turns up at West Ham. It feels like this is a transfer that started 5 years ago and just completed today. Any final words on Jack?
It's a lot of frustration, I guess, with that one, because it's so much of the unrealized talent that was there. Just the injuries just really sapped so much of his athleticism. Always those early games that he played were just so exciting, and he had something that very few players have, that ability to kind of dribble through the Solomon runs and his ability to make passes. Because some of those, when you watched some of his early games, he would try the most audacious through balls and they would come off. It was amazing. And anytime like you see a player like that and he doesn't fulfill the promise, and it's not even that he didn't work hard, because there's never really been any of those kinds of rumors where Jack Wilshere was a slacker putting it on. It was always just his body wouldn't let him do it, and those are the ones that are always the saddest to see. But so I really hope him the best, because to me he's always been a good Arsenal player, going to the team that's I guess he supported as a young player before he came to Arsenal's academy.
Whatever,
so
give me a break. Look, I think it must have been incredible. Coming to training, learning your dribbling from Alex Hleb, who had the ball on a string, and learning your passing from Cesc Fabregas, and seeing some of the quality. I mean, I realize it wasn't the Invincibles, but still some great players to learn from in that moment. And he bursts onto the scene. He had an incredible technical level with the ball at his feet, with his passing. He had a burst in midfield. He was light on his feet. I think as the injuries took their toll on his butt, he reshaped his body. He added muscle. He became a little more ponderous. He lost his fitness levels. I think the thing people forget is that when you're 18 years old, when you're 19 years old in professional sport, professional football, that's when you start to make exponential improvements in your play, in your performance. And when you get to be 26, 27 years old, at least in midfield anyway, you're at that point, you're just fine-tuning. You're putting the finishing touches on. You're not going to improve dramatically season to season at that point. Jack Wilshere lost the seasons when he should have been making exponential leaps forward in consistency and performance. And so by the time he got fit again, and only really in the last 2 seasons, he was already past the developmental years and had lost so much of that development and had a body that no longer could do the things and was structured the way it was when he was younger. So there's a lot of sort of unnecessary Jack hate on the timeline on Twitter. I don't fully understand it. I think, I get it. He maybe liked to smoke, he liked to drink, he liked to party. He went out to Bournemouth when we probably could have used him at Arsenal, although there was no guarantee he was going to play, and he needed to get fit, and it was in everybody's best interest if he was going to have any last shot at staying at Arsenal. But, I do feel sad for him. I do feel sad. I mean, I think you look at the way Diaby is looked at by Arsenal fans and the reverence and love that he gets in the way his career was destroyed by a bad challenge. And while Jack didn't sort of have that horror moment, he should similarly be revered. I mean, he is an Arsenal kid. He was there from the time he was a little kid, and his career was just stolen from him. So I wish him nothing but the best, except, of course, when he plays against us, and I certainly think he will probably get a red card at the Emirates for two-footing Xhaka in August when West Ham comes to Arsenal. So we'll see what happens with that. Help me out here. What's our best center-back pairing? Is it just obviously Mustafi and Socrates, or do you think there's maybe a little hint or potential that Mustafi could go out, or it's just doesn't leave us with enough strength and depth?
Again, so I'll do my hedging here. I think that there's a very good chance that Mustafi doesn't start the season with Arsenal. To me, he seemed like he was almost out at the end of last year, or at the end of the summer transfer window last year. The
Koscielny injury makes it tough, though, right? And if we're not going to buy, according to Ornstein, who's not always right but usually right, this is the end of our first team business, and that leaves you with Socrates, Holding, Chambers, and Mavropanos. You can't even really put together 2 experienced senior center backs to start the season. Would we leave ourselves in that situation?
This is Arsenal.
True, fair. Yeah, I guess you could argue, look, we have 3 young center backs we like. We're going to rotate through them. Socrates is going to anchor that defense. He's 30. If he gets hurt, You're looking at Chambers holding Mavropanos to get through the season. Now, I mean, maybe you say Nacho Monreal has some experience there. Maybe Emery wants to play in a back three, which exposes each one of them a little bit less. We'll find out. But it's worrying. I mean, unless you say Ornstein's wrong, we are going to get another center back. But if Mustafi stays, do you just assume it's going to be him and Socrates to start the season?
I mean, I think that's probably the safest assumption. Again, I mean, they're both, I guess, the only real senior players in the center backs that are healthy. To me, it's something that's concerning because they're both very aggressive front foot kind of players. So it's nice when it comes off, and it can be disastrous when it doesn't. Again, I'm hoping structural changes to the tactics are able to give them less exposure where they're really defending 2-on-2 or 3-on-3. So I'm hopeful. That's really kind of it's the preseason where everything still is shiny and bright, and there's lots of
we're
optimism
win the league.
in the. Well, I don't know if I would go that far, but I'd say we could finish top 4.
Yes, I certainly think you have to say that we are in there with a shout. I mean, you look at what's happening at Chelsea, for example, and they don't seem to have their shit together. Manchester United.
Apparently, Conte's back for 2 more years.
I don't understand what's happening there. So
yeah, that is the craziest thing. And then the other thing, that Arsenal, and you look at the other teams, Arsenal only have one player that's at the semifinals compared to some of the other teams that. Tottenham's got 9 at the semifinals. Manchester United's got 7. Manchester City's got 7. Chelsea's got 5.
Well, Manchester City are going to be fine because they've got players like Riyad Mahrez that are like luxury signings that they can just throw on in meaningless games. It's pretty crazy the way they are consolidating their strength right now. But that just seems to be the way it is. They've got the best manager, they've got the best squad, and they just keep adding to it. So. Well, let's do this for a second. Let's just play a little bit of fantasy transfer rumor for a second. Cristiano Ronaldo's move to Juventus was confirmed today. It is astonishing. I cannot believe it, but really it's probably good business. Yeah,
definitely a shocking move, yeah.
Shocking, but probably good business for Real Madrid if you consider that
they made a profit on that transfer.
Yeah, in a post-prime player. Now, I realize you're talking about a very unique player who is still right there as one of the top 2 players in the world, probably. Although who knows if the cliff is coming for him? And at Juventus, he might get the special attention that is necessary to prolong a career. If you see what I'm hinting at?
It definitely. Yeah. But you also look at moving to Serie A is probably a great move for him. It's a league that older players can really excel at, and I think that's
there's something in the water there,
spot.
Perhaps. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe.
Well, listen, I think the question though is the dominoes that fall. So Real Madrid are not going to sell Cristiano Ronaldo and just stick with what they've got. Maybe Gareth Bale follows on his way out. I got to think Benzema might be on his way out. They're probably going to reshape their attack at some level. I mean, maybe they lean more on Bale, but given his injury track record, I think that's almost impossible. Do you want to just kind of hypothesize with me about some dominoes that you think could fall? I'm not asking you to base it on anything you've read or heard, just if you had to guess. I mean, is this setting up a move for Neymar? Is that what this is all leading to?
I mean, to me, like that would be the optimal replacement for, Ronaldo. Both play kind of that same position. But Neymar's just
such
the
a
new...
fuck you to Barcelona also.
Oh, huge. The only thing that really complicates that is, you just went to PSG last year at, $250 million. Like,
well, they don't care about money. So I mean, if they can't keep him, they'll get rid of him. And
the FFP, coming in, really reopened on them. So it's like, they can't take a loss on that.
Well, I mean, taking a loss is still recouping something versus not selling it all and having his wages and his transfer on the books. I mean, if they have to sell an asset to start getting themselves back into compliance, you're not going to find a better asset than that. I mean, if they can get $150 million for him, they're on their way sort of back to the right side of the rules.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's probably, if you're looking for the ideal replacement, it is Neymar. The other one, there would probably be a 1A. I don't know if he's quite at that Neymar level, but Hazard, who's had a hell of a tournament. And to me, he does a lot of the things that don't show up on the score sheet. He is probably the best dribbler outside of Messi in the world. He is so good at progressing the ball. His ability to take on players and get into dangerous spots is really probably second to only Messi. And yeah, to me, I think he would be a great addition for
They could go for both
Madrid.
of them.
It's and yeah, to me, like if you lose Ronaldo, you're going to have to replace the goals, and I don't think Hazard necessarily replaces those goals on his own.
Do they
So
go
maybe
after
you
Lewandowski and then maybe Bayern go for someone else's striker? I mean, where do the dominoes go?
How about this? Hazard,
Harry
Kane,
Kane?
double swoop.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I realize Kane just re-signed, but could that wind up being leveraged to get more money out of him? I mean, Spurs are in a tough spot because they got a new stadium. They need to fill it. They need to have a good season.
I don't think Kane leaves this summer, but I think it's definitely a possibility he could be next summer. Tottenham basically put their foot down, saying we're opening the new stadium. We're not selling our best player. That would just be a bit of an embarrassment for that club. So I bet if it's not going to be this summer, but I would not be surprised if it was next summer.
What about the players that are going to inevitably leave Juventus as a result of this? I mean, Higuain maybe starting to be on the tail end himself, and Dybala, I mean, that's the one that you really wonder about. If they're going to sell him, is that a case of he's too good not to at least put your hat in the ring for that? I mean, what do you think happens in terms of Juventus reshaping their squad?
Yeah, so yeah, I think that, I mean, you look at Higuain, Mandzukic, those are probably the guys that are the most disposable and replaceable with Ronaldo. To me, if I was, Juventus, I would do everything I could to keep Dybala. To me, he is one of the up and coming stars. I mean, he's probably no longer in that up and coming stage. He's probably a star, and I can't believe Argentina didn't give him very much game time at all.
Yeah,
that team is just a train wreck.
Totally.
So yeah, I mean, if Dybala is out there, he's a guy that Arsenal had all these cash reserves and the keeping the powder dry. Go to the bank and see if you can go get a cash advance and get him.
Yep, that was it. That was the end of your thought.
That was the end of my thought. Go get him.
It ended on a weird tone there. I thought there was a follow.
It's okay.
Okay, all right, good. I just don't want to interrupt you.
It's the off season for us podcasters too.
We're getting into shape. Look, I am renowned for my interrupting, and now that I'm trying not to interrupt, I'm screwing the whole thing up. So I'm just going to go back to interrupting everybody. It's what I know. It's what I'm good at. So, I mean, final thoughts. Is there a player out there that you wish we would go for? A player out there you think we still could be in for? A move that you think we failed to make in the summer? I mean, let's do this. Let's say this is the end of the first team business. Give me an American style letter grade for the summer we've had.
To me, it feels like a B plus. I feel like we've taken care of some of the really pressing needs, added depth where depth is needed, and took out the big glaring hole that is defensive midfield. Really, the last things that are outstanding are a wide forward. I mean, I think if Arsenal had a wide forward that they'd signed, I think we'd be in A range.
Yeah, I think wide forward is a pretty obvious miss, but at the same time, we have so many attacking players that we need to try to integrate that maybe it's just a case of setting up the team with what we've got. I mean, don't get me wrong, we need a wide forward, and that is a need that will become more keenly felt as players like Lacazette and Mkhitaryan Aubameyang and Mkhitaryan, and even Ozil to some extent, start to age out of their prime. But I think we can get away without it. I would have liked to have seen one more sort of pre-prime quality center back, maybe. And if that means Mustafi leaves, I'm fine with it. But yeah, I mean, I think so. Here's the funny thing, Scott. If you just look at the summer, I think it's a B. It's a solid B. We addressed a major need with a huge potential star in center midfield, and then we were very workmanlike in the way we addressed other issues, and we left wide forward unaddressed. If you add the January window into the equation and say, really, you can't look at this window without factoring in January, and you say, we were able to swap an end of his contract, Alexis for Mkhitaryan, we were able to re-sign Ozil, we got Aubameyang. You add that to what we've done, it's much closer to like an A- or an A.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you look at the Arsenal squad, the way that they've kind of built together, there is a lot of talent in the team. And I think that it'll be interesting to try to squeeze all that talent on the pitch at the same time. And I don't even know if it's going to necessarily be possible. But I don't know. I like the way it stacks up against the other top four contenders. I mean, it's not going to be. I don't think that Arsenal competes with Manchester City for the title this year, but I think that they have a very good shot of third, fourth, and things break really good, second, third. So I think that it should be an interesting season, and I'm hoping for a good long Europa League run like we saw last year, but hopefully a better semifinal result. And I think that this could be a fun, interesting thing. I'm interested what Emery's going to do. I've come around a lot since our shocking first day that he was announced kind of at the podcast, but I'm coming along.
Yeah, well, I will tell you what, I'm excited. I think the combination of a new coach, not manager, but coach with new tactics, a chance for a full season with Aubameyang, Mkhitaryan, Ozil, Ramsey, Lacazette. I mean, there's a lot of attacking talent, so we should at least, even if Emery's tactics are a little more defensively oriented, which I wouldn't mind, that should be plenty to be excited about. We've got, at least it appears, the anchor to the midfield that we've been crying out for really since Gilberto left, with the exception of maybe one season to Matthew Flamini. I just think there's a lot to be excited about. And do we look like we could be a little open at the back? I mean, we do, but it can't be any worse than what we just experienced. So fingers crossed it will be an exciting season. I think we can leave it there. We will come back with more podcasts as warranted. I mean, I guess we have preseason starting this weekend. Is that right? Do we have a match? I want to say this Saturday?
Is it the Boreham Wood one?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, Boreham Wood versus Arsenal, Meadow Park. So, yeah, I mean, maybe we'll come back after the first preseason game. I have no idea if that'll be watchable, but if it is, we'll break it down. If it isn't, we'll pretend we saw it and broke it down. How about that?
Have to hit up Arsenal Player and see if it's on there.
Yeah, this is such a great time of year for Arsenal Player. You know what I mean? It's like this is their moment. In any event, Scott's on Twitter at @O_that_crab. He's going to be doing a lot of statsy stuff for us throughout the season, and he's a great follow on Twitter if you are getting into the analytics side of the game and want to read some of the fine work he's doing. Scott, thanks as always.
Thank you.
My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. We have a lot of fun stuff scheduled for this upcoming season, a lot of new features and things we'll be doing, so I hope you'll stick with us. Give us a 5-star review. Write nasty things about Tim, Paul, Clive, the usual people who deserve it. But, as for us, say nice things. In any event, enjoy the other semifinal, England-Croatia. Enjoy the final of the World Cup. Be sure to watch Arsenal kick off their preseason, and we'll come back to you shortly. Cheers.